Yo, what up, listeners? Welcome to the show. Today's guest, second time guest. He's been a good friend, uh, been a mentor in many ways. I met him at a coaching group. Robert MacInnis. He's owned one of the biggest private dental practices in Canada. He built it from the ground up and sold it. So just really smart guy, successful entrepreneur. Very opinionated and very vocal like me, so that's why we get along. Uh, but yeah, we talk about having long-term friendships and how you're able to maintain those. Talk about a lot of personal growth stuff, which we're both really big believers in. And then we dive into fat shaming and how talking about people's weight and obesity is like frowned upon, and why we should be able to like call someone out if they're unhealthy. And it's like we're not allowed to do that, right? Like both Trump and Biden's White House were afraid to say, hey, if you're fat, you're more likely to die of COVID, and you're also more likely to die of a lot of things, not just COVID. But I think, and myself included, because I've dealt with weight issues over the years, it's okay to just be honest and talk about people's health. And I believe that's the only way we're going to get better in those areas. It's just having these tough conversations. So we talk about that as well. It's a really great conversation. Always enjoy chatting with Bob. Enjoy the episode.
This is Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams, where differing opinions are not only accepted, they're encouraged.
All right, Bob, welcome back for your second appearance. Thanks for talking to us again.
Yeah, like your teeth, Jeremy. Good stuff.
Yeah, my teeth are much better actually since your first episode, which you were one of the first episodes, maybe number 3.
I think
And
so, really, yeah.
and you're a dentist, obviously, so you really look at teeth. But yeah, I was really insecure about aspects of my teeth. I've always had pretty good teeth, but there were a couple things that I wanted to get tightened up, and I appreciate the kind words, because I really take this smile seriously, and I, put a couple grand into this mouth to make it look this good. So,
That's it?
well, I have insurance, but my teeth were never like super fucked up. It was more just like I had to get the main cap, and then I've been like bleaching them and stuff like that. But yeah,
I'm busting you. I know it's us.
I had to. The one thing I am a little scared about is I may have to get. I have 3 out of my 4 wisdom teeth, and they haven't caused me any problems yet. But I may have to get those removed in the next few years.
Yeah. It's a good idea, Jeremy. We can have a consult with that later.
So you as a dentist, you didn't. Those are for oral surgeons, right? Dentists don't touch wisdom teeth.
Well, I did. I worked in the hospital my whole career. I've probably done, I don't know, 10,000 wisdom teeth. I don't know.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's been going on? What you feel comfortable sharing? What did you and Dave catch up about?
Oh, God. Yeah, that's a good one. I don't know. For the people, everybody know who Dave is as we're
Well, it's
talking. I
just
know
a friend of mine. He was on the episode, Dave LaRue,
yeah.
but I figured Bob and I are part of a coaching group. Bob hasn't been in a while. I'm trying to encourage him to come back soon when travel opens up from Canada, which hopefully is any day now. But we're part of this same coaching group where we work on ourselves and we meet a lot of great people. That's actually where Bob and I met. So it's through Dave. So that's why I bring him up.
Yeah, well, Dave, I don't know if you knew this, but we started that group, Dave and I. Long time ago, and it kind of connects back to one of the things I'm still working on that we may circle back in terms of what we call the Genius platform, but it's kind of where we started with the coaching group as a spin-off for that whole Genius platform. And I'm still working on my training platform for dentistry in specific, and and then Dave, and you remember Barry too. We started that, the 3 of us, as a spin-off some of the other entrepreneurial coaching things that we were involved with for many years. That's where I actually met Dave. So it's always great to connect back. We've got a really strong personal history, and we have that really interesting rare fundamental connection. And it's a really kind of an important thing to define at this period in your life. And at any period, you need those kind of you need that ability to connect with somebody on that level. It's hard to find. And Dave's probably in my top, 3 or 4, and I'm in his as well. But even though we don't talk all the time, we can freely talk and go back to where we were and where we started, because it started with a really great personal connection that we did some professional things together. But the relationship is strong enough to kind of understand we got to let those things flow a little bit more. And it was such a strong relationship from the beginning that we have, arguably we started with the premise that this manufacturing company that I started 20 years ago in the mining industry, well, it's a natural fit with Dave because he's in industrial distribution in the States. He's in 7 states. So he sells shit and we make shit. So, that's a different conversation about actually that kind of business. But we started with a really great connection a long time ago to see where that fit could be. And we went in a lot of different directions with that. And it's still out there. It's just that we're strong enough that, as we had our bumps along the way, we could always go back to the things that just felt right and authentic. And, we always go back to what we call values, first principles. We have that very strong connection. So it's just seamless when we talk. So we just talk. We could talk for 9 hours, and we've done it many times.
Yeah.
It just happens.
So you and Dave are around the same age, right?
Well, I'm older than he is, but
okay.
A little bit. He never forgets to tell me that. I'm 66, Jeremy. So.
Okay, and he's 64?
Yeah, about that. But he looks about 84.
Yeah. Now he has like a youthful. I mean, you both do. You both have a youthful energy about you. I don't feel. I just because I've always just gravitated towards men specifically, just a little bit older than me. I don't know. I just more to talk about. What do you think is a key to keeping strong friendships through time and as we age? And because you guys have known each other for a while, experienced lots of different things in life. Yeah. And what do you think is a key to just keep a friendship? Because I know there's typically challenges along the way.
Well, I mean, I can use a lot of those words that we use in our coaching groups and things, but they're very applicable. I mean, you got to be authentic and you got to be free to be authentic. And sometimes you got to just have difficult conversations and you got to take the pitch away. I mean, it's like, okay, what are we here? What are we doing? And what can we say and what can we not say? Well, to be honest with you, you should be able to say anything and be free to say that. And it does create some trouble and conflict. But I'll tell you where the growth is in that, is that if you're able to have some of these really difficult conversations, if you've got a strong connection, that's where your growth occurs. It's really uncomfortable. I mean, in life, anything which is uncomfortable usually leads you to the path of growth. And growth's not, everybody uses growth as such a great word. It's not a fucking great word all the time. It's usually a product of you're so damn uncomfortable that you just got to do something about it. And if you go headlong into that kind of stuff, you're going to find that the more you kind of bury it in, I don't know, what would I say? You bury it in the things you're supposed to say instead of the things you should say. You won't grow. I mean, you got to really open up that kind of avenue of conversation. It's very difficult to have with very many people. You have to have somewhat of a history together. And I'm not saying you can't have it, but I mean, it usually starts with sharing some of your individual failures. You're going to end up doing some stuff together, but the magic usually starts, and usually right away, that you share a lot of the common things. I mean, the jokes flow, your interests flow. And I see you've talked to some people on your podcast you have a good connection with. But whatever you kind of connect with that doesn't have any ulterior motive, and it usually flows from that. And in our case, we were introduced by a friend, actually a coach in the strategic coach program, where Dave was a coach. And it was such a natural fit in what I was doing in this company that we just connected and we started to talk about possibilities. But here's the problem. This is really interesting. We had such a strong personal connection that we both craved in our personal lives, and it was just a home run out of the gate. I mean, we shared different things. We're fortunate in terms of our financial ability to do what we want to do. We were in those days. I mean, we met maybe 20 years ago. I don't even know, maybe 20 years, Jeremy. So we were both well down the road in terms of what we'd done in our lives and our career, and we were both very stable. We just, it was seamless. What we did personally, we connected on family levels. There's a lot there. So it allowed us to kind of very easily go down the road of some of the opportunities that were in front of us. And then we kind of did a lot of those things. Here's a good way to kind of coin this, and you may have heard Dave talk about this before. It's a phrase that we coined a long time ago. You really just shouldn't do something just because you can. We did a lot of that because we could afford to do it. I mean, we could afford it with our time, our energy, the money that we may have had to put in. It was just an easy thing to overlook some of the ingredients then you have.
Are you referring to like business deals that you guys did together?
Yeah, business deals. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we went deep into each other's business stuff and we did things together. Well, even this coaching at the Comma Club was one of those things that we were working on. And we're circling back. We're going to circle back on everything eventually. It's just that I'm not a coach. I mean, I love to talk to people one-on-one. It's been my whole life. My unique ability is to connect with people with relationships. But Dave is brilliant at being a coach. I mean, he's brilliant at it. But it gets him in trouble, I think, at times. And he would agree with that in terms of he's very giving, he's very happy. But people take advantage of that. And they take advantage of Dave a lot. That was one of the reasons I backed out of the coaching program. There's too many people taking advantage of it. They just were treating. I thought they were treating him badly. I actually encouraged Dave to go out of the strategic coach program and would go out on our own because we'd been together in that for like 15 years. And it was, we had a lot of really great conversation about that. But, it's really, I guess, what would I say? If you have one of those situations, work on it. I mean, if you have a relationship with somebody and it's just working, keep working on it, but then don't give up too easy. But there's a time to say, fuck this. This is not right. This doesn't work. And you kind of know when that happens. Give it a little bit of time, but not too much time.
Yeah, I think my mindset has shifted on relationships. A buddy of mine said this to me one time, like a few months ago, and it stuck with me. Any relationship without conflict is a dictatorship.
Oh, that's good.
So I just believe every relationship should have conflict, and anyone seeking relationships without conflict is just, it's probably not a really close, mutually beneficial relationship. Just because if you're spending a lot of time, you're going to have some disagreements. I mean, we're human. You're going to annoy the shit out of the other person at times. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the truth of relationships. Humans are, sometimes very short-tempered. Do you know something that I've never shared this with you or Dave, but I wrote it down here to make sure I bring it up because it's important. And I'm just kind of like putting it into words right now, but this was really important for me because I joined Comma Club about like 4 or 5 years ago, so in my mid-20s. Mm-hmm. And I was having like drama with my friends. And what I'm about to tell you, I mean this in the most like respectful way because it made me feel that I wasn't alone and that I wasn't like, because of the challenges I was having with my friends, I would question my maybe maturity or my ability to have healthy friendships or relationships or whatever. But after being around guys like you and Dave, and I actually saw that you guys were having similar, challenges, and that was just like normal in friendships to just have disagreements and stuff. It made me feel better about my situation. Be like, oh, wow, okay. So I guess like that's just normal in friendships. Up until that point, I never knew that it was normal to just have challenges in relationships like that. And when I saw, it was an unintended lesson by you and Dave probably, but it made me realize that I like wasn't at fault, I suppose, for having these challenges because I looked up to you guys and I just like, if these guys are having it, then I guess it's okay. It gave me permission to just have some conflict and challenges.
Well, that's good. I mean, there's one bit of insight here. Before you can have a really good relationship with somebody else, you got to be true to yourself. You really got to work on yourself. And I spend inordinate time in my head, an inordinate amount of time in my head. It's just, and Dave's helped me a lot because he's in a different plane than me. It's not a hierarchical thing. But I'm in my head all the time. I mean, I'm intense, and David, our stories where we laugh the most are about how intense I can get. I don't think you've ever really seen me like that, but I mean, when I was younger, when I met Dave, and I was just going straight balls to the wall with everything. I mean, I was really intense, Jeremy. And I've learned a lot from Dave, and I think he's learned a lot from me because of that. I mean, I have a way and a unique ability, if you want to call that, or innate ability, as you get into these things with Dave and some of his definitions, which are great, is that I just can't help but not connect with people. I've done it my whole life. And I'm not normal like that. I don't mean normal, good or bad. It's just this is the cards I was dealt with. I mean, I can almost look at it this way. You can't recreate your past, and you can't try and be what you're not. But, my developmental period, I came from shit. I mean, I came from nothing. I mean, I've been alone since I was 4, pretty much. I mean, I had parents, I had families, but there's all kinds of, financial, lots of stuff in my past. It's not, my point is not to go back there because I've dealt with it very well, but I've felt like a parent since I was 4. So, I mean, translating that forward into a search for where you go, and I think this may connect with people that are in the entrepreneurial mode, and I won't rip too much in that, but I ended up, without asking for it, almost like a generational head start. Because I can go back in my head when I was 4, and I got the same head. And I couldn't define what principles are or goals or values, but here I am from 4 all the way up through my education right till I was 24 when I started my so-called career as a dentist. I've had a whole generation of being this way. And I looked at everybody around me since I was 4 to 10, like, people don't get it. I mean, I could literally, without knowing what my unique ability was and figuring out what that is, what do I do? Why do I do this? I mean, I put myself on front stage, and I can adapt to anybody around me in a relationship because I've had to, because I felt like I had nothing. And that's the way I kind of worked my way through it. Now, did I intend to do that? I mean, you do what you can to dig yourself out of a hole, in my mind. But I mean, it worked. I mean, I could manipulate teachers. I mean, I will use the word manipulate. It's not fair. I could guide the relationships. Manipulate.
Manipulate has a negative connotation, but there's a lot of positives to manipulation. I mean, sometimes manipulation, I guess it's similar to a theory of, like a king. Like there's maybe historians will say there's a few good kings in world history. It's like, sure, if you use the power for good, you can actually do a lot of good with manipulation. And we're getting manipulated all the time. I mean, that's what commercials are. That's what sales is. I mean, sometimes it's okay to get somebody to manipulate to go to a therapist or go to the gym. I mean, there's positives to it. But yeah, I don't think that's a bad word. Do you think like your tendencies that you're talking about, you said since you were 4, do you feel like you were born with them, or they were learned?
Both. I don't know. I mean, well, the weird thing is I still have the same first principles or values that I've had forever, because, here's something real. I just pulled out February 2011. In those days, Dave and I were working on, and I think you've worked on some of the things, what's your word, what's your unique ability statement, what are your strengths, all those things. So we worked on this, and I worked on it with Dave, and I can't remember what his is, but very different. But let's read this to you. And this kind of is something I haven't looked at this for about 5 years. But it still holds true today, and I'll just read this to you. To connect people and ideas as a catalyst to motivate, maximize, and inspire, while always focusing on the drumbeat of a core ideology leading to value creation, happiness, and using laughter as a tonic. So how that's applicable to what we're talking about, I had this ability to guide relationships with teachers, with parents, friends. Why can't you be like Bob? This whole deal. And, because I had to get out of my home. So my parents thought I was great. I did very well in school. I was the firstborn. So what I would do is I always had this ability. When I say manipulate, I wanted to kind of justify that. It was an inherent desire to help others, probably because I felt like nobody helped me. Now, when I go back to my childhood, unlike a lot of people, I don't have a victim mentality at all, Jeremy. I don't have crocodile tears. I have nothing like that. I only have this crazy internal strength that I draw from all the time. And I always circle back from where I can do a big overview, like I think I just sent this to you when I was on a little rant today, but a 30,000 feet down to 5 feet, and have an ability to do that, combined with the fact that my absolute goal is to help look after people. And I don't put myself first in that because I have an ability to go too long over the years. And I'm in a transition now because of that. And that's probably a story worth sharing. And Dave was actually part of that too, because he got a little bit caught in my, cleaning up a lot of startup companies, businesses, ventures that I wouldn't give up on because I could always see something else around the corner. Now that is a little bit of a curse, Jeremy, for an entrepreneur, because I don't try and do this stuff, but I can't not do it. If I see something in front of me, and I don't know if that ties back to when I was 4, I was never good. Here's a strength. I mean, I don't want to make this about me, by the way.
No, but, I mean, we can make it about you. It's okay. I'm always talking about me. So.
Okay. But it ended up being this. I'm not really great at anything. Never was. I knew it.
I agree that I am the same way, by the way. I don't think there's any one thing that I'm like great at. It's just I think I can just see puzzle pieces and just kind of understand how things work. But I don't have like a innate like true skill that can like is like a hireable skill, We
can do it. I mean, I think we've touched on it a little bit before, but it'd be good for you and I to do a deep dive on that at some point. Not here, but a deep dive on that. I think I can pull a lot out of that. I think I can help you with. But knowing that is such an enormous advantage, because you can then look to use people. And if you think you can do anything in life that you're not collaborating with people, you're fooling yourself. I mean, it's all about people. But the problem you're always going to have, it's the people. I'll talk about that company that I did the startup on, and it's just so, I mean, I'm not going to tell you the name of it. I won't tell you too much about it other than the fact where the stories apply, because we're in some pretty proprietary times. My son, as you know, my son's running that company. It's doing great. And, it's very difficult when you see an opportunity in front of you and you just go into it. And every step along the way, well, I got to do this. I mean, I can't understand why nobody's using this. And you just keep going. And the problem with that is what you'll find is the barriers along the way are not the things that a dedicated person nose down into the wind isn't going to figure out, unless you're an idiot or you're entitled and you don't give a shit and you're looking for the easy way out. But it's a little bit of a curse, because you just I can't not do this shit. And so I have to kind of do it. To the point, I even have to protect the people around me so they don't think I'm a raving lunatic. So I have to play front stage with them. I have to kind of say, I'm good. Why are you doing this? Because I can't explain what motivates me with this. So along the way, the biggest barrier you're going to find always is the people. It's your biggest asset and it's your biggest barrier. And you got to have a way to filter through this. And you got to understand that you got to get it down to having conversations with people that guide them, because if you just let them flow, it just kind of, I mean, it's you're going to have to guide them. And I actually came up with something that really helped me over this last 5 years since I retired from being at the dental chair. I had this enormous dental practice, 5-6 years ago. I also had these other businesses that I was running and doing. But when you take that position of authority and everybody's looking for you to kind of make the decisions and to do the deal and to go the deep dive all the time, it's very difficult to do. But you need to then have conversations where you don't end up at every interface to be so fucking disappointed you want to punch everybody around you in the face all the time. So I want to take a little bit of the...
Is that where you think you were? You were just start getting really frustrated with people?
Oh, I'm always like that, Jeremy.
Oh, okay.
Well, here's a thing in your mind. If you can visualize it. Dave and I did something with this years ago we never did, and I call it the entrepreneurial staircase. I think we started this 15 years ago. And in my mind, what it is, if you visualize something where there's a straight line, And the straight line for me, it can be in an opportunity, it can be in my life, it can have all the things in one basket, but I always have a straight line, which means you're either growing or you're dying. There's no status quo. It never exists. It's a fallacy, this way or that way. So I've got this line I'm on, realizing I'm not really great at anything. So how the hell do I keep this trajectory going?
People, right?
The way I do it is I realize there's a staircase. You know what the staircase is? It does like a normal staircase right over top of my line that's going this way that I'm on. And people don't know I'm on it, but I'm on this thing. This thing's going one direction. So I do what I can with 100% intent in mind to use people within their unique ability and move them up the staircase, help them up to give them what I believe is a better spot. But at some point, guess what happens? They can't get out of their own way, and I got to boot them off because they're in the way. And I
so
try.
Do you think words are important, right? I know you're a big words guy being in coaching. So you said use people. What about guide people? Do you like
utilize, guide people? I said I put an edge on it, so I'm taking a little bit of.
No. This is good. I'm gonna. If I hear something, I'll challenge. I'll challenge it.
It's in my head. Now, what nobody knows I do this. Actually, I'm sharing stuff with you that I've got a trail around me of probably hundreds of people, very talented people, that at the end of the day, when I've given them so much opportunity and really they were much better for it, and by the time that I have to kind of ease them into a different direction, they kind of don't know what hit them, and I'm on to another thing because I have to, because it becomes an anchor.
Bob,
anchor.
Listen to this. All right, I'm going to bring this up right here. My genius statement, which I'm just finalized my updated genius statement last year, and it legitimately took me probably all of Comma Club to get to this point to put it in one sentence. So I think we're very similar. My updated genius statement as of 2020, which I feel like it's still accurate in 2021. My genius is to build authentic relationships and help those around me discover their brightest path.
That's great.
So I feel like that's where we align. I'm able to build trust with people and help those around me. That's how I build my success, because I'm aware that not only do I lack these like crucial skill sets to like maybe build a business, but I don't think I have the energy or passion to want to become an expert at anything. No. You know, like
you're better off if you don't.
Yeah. So I think we really align there. So I help, and it actually took me like a couple days to like even word this final part. Help those around me discover their brightest path. I truly think that's, whether it's internal team members, partnerships, friends, I mean, that's something I've become really, really strong at. And that's, now that I have confidence in that being my genius, it's game over. For many, many years, I was really insecure and had a lot of self-doubts because I didn't think I had skills, and I was around all these smart people, and I'm like, but then I realized just one day it clicked from coaching or books or whatever. I'm just like, wait, without me, like none of these people would be working together. And it took me probably 29 years to figure that out. I'm 30, about to be 31 now. But now that I feel like it's sky's the limit. So
let me add something to that. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead.
Let me add this to you. You're on a discovery, and people that are well-intended, smart people that want to take opportunities and be around other people like you do, you're only going to have the best intent for everybody around you. And I want to share something, going back to Dave. I mean, we talked about this yesterday. And before I say that, I want to say this to you. Use the voice in your head, and you know what that means, and most people do. The thinker behind you. Know what the thinker is. It's not real, but it's there. And to being able to distinguish, this is the thinker in me. It's kind of some of that, being mindful, and I don't know if you're into meditation and things, but without going there, everybody has usually a voice in your head, and it's a very valuable voice it's very valuable. You're going to have to wrestle with it your whole life. But as you're talking to yourself or stepping outside and watching yourself, here's a good one. My whole life, I've been able to step outside and watch my interactions with others. When I was sitting in 4th grade, I could watch the teacher watch me like an observer. It's weird, Jeremy. I use that as a dentist, 24-year-old dentist out of school, and I would watch my interactions with the patient. I already knew what the patient was thinking and what they were doing and what I needed to do in terms of taking my front stage, I use the word front stage there, with the patient's front stage, and I'd be trying to draw out what are they thinking, what's in their head. So here's what I want you to ask yourself in terms of working on your genius statement is this: what do I do? And then I want you to say, why do I do it? And here's the one that I've added over the years that's even more important. What does it look like when I get there? Now, this never changes, and this is your ongoing thing, but then you have to put it in the past tense, because you're going to say, well, what do I do? Why do I do it? And what does it look like when I get there? And then you get into more future tense and that gap between where you are and where you're going. But it's very valuable to always look back and say, what did I do? Now, you can put it in context of a project, a relationship. Why did I do that? And what the hell did I think I was going to look like when I got there? These are great to do for failures. I hate the word failure. I hate it.
I agree. I hate it too.
It's ridiculous having a failure. I'm looking right now for a failure that I can kind of get my teeth in, and I can literally walk away and learn more and say, but I kind of dig in forever on these, things that I get involved with, and I go deep. But there's many, many of these barriers are along the way, and you just got to be willing to, you call them failures, it's fine. But it's very important, Jeremy, that you're always asking yourself these questions, because here's where you might end up going with it. And the earlier you can start thinking about this, and you may not be yet, because you maybe need a little bit more experience under your belt. And experience is a great thing. It's not condescending. It's miles under your belt, is this. When you're looking back and you care about other people, and your genius statement just encompass that, and really successful people, and you're going to hear the common thread. It's about the people. Look after the people. The business will look after itself. I mean, that's a great one. My number one value in my platform is look after your people. And that's like team and customers. And then you get into marketplace. So it's really important when you're thinking of these things is to always think about this question. Where's the self-compassion for myself? Where's my self-compassion in this? Where do I start being compassionate to myself? The problem that you have as, say, an entrepreneur, a successful business, you're going to see the common threads. And then we can maybe talk about the difference between this new way of having online, you got your online personality, your offline personality, and I can maybe help with a little bit of advice there. But it's really difficult when you care so much about people, sometimes more than they care about themselves, and then you craft your conversations to give them their best potential outcome. And you're going to realize when you're really strong at this, the outcome that you want for them is far exceeds what they want for themselves. And then you got to cut the line. And you got to sometimes just say, that's where I would say, ease them off of the step and put maybe some guardrails around their steps so you kind of maximize their ability, which you just said. I need those people around me because they're better at doing that than I am. This person's better at that. And then getting out of your own way. But that's how the whole project as a whole or relationship goes forward. So working on a little bit of self-compassion give yourself license to do that. And I don't mean material things.
No, I like that. I mean, that's actually what I wrote down to mention. The biggest downside of manipulation, even positive manipulation, we're just using that word, but helping people find their brightest path, whatever it is, fill in the synonym here, but we'll just use manipulation for now, is especially for someone like me who can deal with some anxiety, when you're worried about what other people are doing and trying to control the end outcome so much, which is kind of what, manipulation is, that can just add to your anxiety. It can add stress because you're just worried about all these outcomes. So I feel like that's been a big shift for me, even just the last few weeks. If I've just realized I'm looking at people in my life, I don't want people I want to have to sell twice on. So, and you may have heard this before, but I feel like the danger in being the type of person that wants to help people discover their brightest path is I would have to sell people twice. The importance of self-growth. And then now that you're sold on the importance of self-growth, the type of growth you should be doing. So it's like I'm selling people twice. I'm just done selling people on the importance of self-growth and only focusing on people that we can collaborate on ways to grow. And that was a big realization for me because it's such a drain of energy. And I just realized there are multiple people in my life I'm just having to talk to about the importance of reading a fucking book. And I'm just like, dude, if I gotta be the one to tell you, like, hey, you're having this issue in your life, you know how many books there are that literally fix this? Like, and you complain for 3 years about this fucking issue. Like, read a book, see a professional. Like, I can't be around that anymore. Like, people that just have the same issue month after month, year after year. And like, I realized, I'm like, that was a flaw in my personality, because I was trying to help them, but they're not even committed to growth themselves. And what an energy drain for me. So that's why, like, that was a big shift for me. It's just really only dealing with people that are already committed to growth, and then we can collaborate rather than trying to convince people. I'm no longer going to convince people on the importance of growth. If they don't see the importance of growth, they just don't have a space in my life. What are your thoughts on that?
It's great. That's really great at that point in your life that you're going to do that, because you're very talented with people. You're willing to go out there and just go into it, and you're interested in people of all different types, ages, whatever. So understanding that, because it may help you in terms of understanding people will get into this loop with you, and they'll kind of feed back in. Yeah. Because really in a lot of it, if you really think of what's in their head, God, Jeremy can help me. Jeremy can help me. Jeremy can help me. Yeah, great. So you get this positive feedback and you get looped into that thing. And the problem is then you think you can solve all these problems. And the worst part is you fucking can, but they don't even know it. So you get drained in that deal. And at the end of the day, you get such disappointment. I get so disappointed to this day. And I know why, but I mean, I'm just disappointing that people can't be better. And it's nothing to do with intelligence. Well, it's a whole compilation of things. But people just generally take the easy way up. I developed something that's kind of cool, and it really helped me in the last 5 years. And I coined this thing a pursue conversation. Because what I would do when I get into my passionate zone, maybe too much coffee, too much connection, and I start going, and I've been better at this. You haven't really seen me too much. Ask Dave or Barry about some of those. Dave and Barry would have to just, Dave's got so many stories about that. I remember we're in, put a story in, it's good. Put a story in about Dave. So we're in I think it's Beverly, Wilshire, and we were at an event. I don't know what it was. I might have been presenting at an event. I can't remember. But anyway, we were there, and there's a bar there. And, all the la-di-das are going in there. Well, we're there at the end of the night, a great dinner. I think we're at Puck's for dinner, whatever the newest cuts in there or whatever. And so we're at the bar. Dave and I are having a drink, and we've had some great wine, and we start talking, and we're at the bar. And we're just on a roll, just connecting, a little bit of, great wine doesn't hurt. And we were just rifling through stuff. Well, and when I get in that mode and he amps me up, so I end up doing this, and I'm like this talking to him, and the hands are going. Dave's like, and all of a sudden I stop and I look around, the whole fucking bar is listening to us. The bartender stopped. I looked, and it was like we were just so into this, and there was probably about 30 people in this small bar. And everybody was listening to it because it was an entrepreneurial conversation. It was about people. It was about, it was crazy. And it was like, I was not even aware. And actually I looked to the girl beside us, beautiful girl. And I look at her, and she's with her, you could tell he was a rich dude, and he was way out of his league looks wise, but he probably had a Bugatti or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, or not. Yeah.
I look at her and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and I didn't realize. And she said, "No, keep going. I don't want to talk to him." Of course, but it's like the awareness. But when you get in that kind of mode, you gotta whatever you're getting in that feed, and this is great to have those positive feedbacks when you're just on all cylinders. So sometimes you get into these modes for whatever reason, and this is where this thing that helped me a lot in these conversations, because I got to tone down that. And my word, what's your word? Do you have a word, Jeremy, to work that out?
I don't know if I have a word.
Did you ever do it in Comma Club, the word? I mean, Dave and I did a lot of that before.
Maybe like freedom.
Yeah, freedom. Well, my word was always passion, because I just get overcooked with this stuff. I mean, it's like, So I have this way that when I'm in all these conversations now, especially if it's more of a business thing, and I govern back the relationships. I've been doing it too long, Jeremy. You have 60 interfaces with people that think you're a walking dental god for 36 years. For Christ's sake, they don't even know me. I mean, I just give them what they want. I know what's in their head. So that's why I could have such a large deal with that. So I have these things and I call it pursue. And I go into this thing and I want to revolve the conversation around 5 elements, and they can be in any order. So I say it's got to be around principles. It's got to be around expectation, the person's strengths, and what's their understanding. So what it is, when I start those conversations and it flows, I want to go back to those things. That's what I want to get out of it. What expectation does this person have on me? What do I have on them? Is this going to work? Like, what do I think are these people's skill sets? Do they understand what this project is? And do we connect with principles at all, at any level? Or even if we don't, I use it as a filter so I can get through these and it's really valuable for it's not valuable for just a basic conversation, but if it's a good high level conversation that could be somebody you want to collaborate with, it's very helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, and then I prepare for these things, and I'll even do something called, I'll prepare for some of these calls with these people, and I do this thing called a conflict buster that I worked out with this guy who's a writer. Did you ever meet Robert Klein?
I did not. I did not meet Robert Klein. I wrote down something really quick I wanted to ask you before I forgot.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. So you talked about this guy being with this girl out of his league. So do you believe that's a thing? Because the more confidence that and again, this has been you know how serious I am about growth. And I mean, this is a work in progress. So I haven't always felt this way, but maybe the last couple of years I've developed this confidence. I don't believe there's such thing as, I believe that if I put my mind to it, I could be with any woman I wanted to.
Sure.
Do you believe that's a thing? Do you think there's such thing as outpunting your coverage?
I think it's good that you think that way anyway.
Yeah.
I mean it's probably not true in reality, but I mean I think it's a great mindset to go in with confidence. I mean it's sure. I mean you got your teeth done. I mean you're a good looking guy, you got some money. So I mean depending on where you go, I mean if you want to go to the bar at Applebee's, fuck it. I mean forget it. It's not worth it. But if you're going to go to some nice places, which you deserve doing by the way, I mean, Dave and I always have that thing. We go first class all the time, everything we ever did and everything. That's one of our first connections that we had this ability. I'm not going to use numbers. I'm not going to use wealth. I don't do that. I mean, I don't tell anybody this stuff because it's irrelevant to me, especially at this point. It isn't irrelevant. It's very important, but I don't want to get into those conversations about numbers. But we've always been able to, that was part of the foundation of this coaching program was we wanted to do everything top drawer. To the point where the first couple were like ridiculous. I mean, it was like, Dave, what are you doing? I mean, they were doing $400 bottles of Insignia and everything. I put the brakes on everything. I said, whoa, 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 whoa. And, that was so, but it was all well intended. But, when you're positioning yourself to kind of get through the door with a discussion, and I guess that's a good way to put it. I mean, there's a little bit of work you need to do. I mean, you've already done it, but go in with confidence, just show interest, look in the eyes, and just be interested in what somebody's saying, and then circle the conversation around what you think's in their head.
And not that everything will be a fit. So that's the thing is like I still have to filter when I get there, so I could see this beautiful woman, and maybe there's just not a good energetic vibe, and I'm not saying every thing will be a great romantic match, but I've just developed the confidence recently that just there's not anybody I would ever consider out of my league is maybe a better way to put it. Right. I don't know if we're going to be aligned morally and value-wise and energetically and romantically. Like, who knows until that time comes. But there's nobody, and when I was younger, I had a lot of fear of approaching women and talking to certain women and stuff like that. But fortunately, I've bettered myself in that area. And I any young man, like, I think that's the best confidence to have. Because I think for me, Bob, and this is like maybe the first time I've ever admitted this, like on my podcast, like if I get married one day, like it's not going to be with anybody I have even a remote question that I settled. Like Good. it can't be like, yeah, she was just nice and she's like, this girl has to be like a perfect fit for me. She has to be beautiful. Like if I'm like, and that's just how I feel. Like, why I'm not saying everybody in life settles, but there are millions of marriages in America where they're not very happy, they're not really aligned, they don't have a ton of common interests, they both or one of the people feels like they settled in certain areas. Like, that's just not going to be me, and if that is how I feel, I'm just not going to get married. So that's just like the realization I've had, and not that I'm perfect by any means, but I wouldn't want my potential partner to feel like they're settling either. So if we both were just like, hey, I think you're a great, I think you're the best. Like, I feel great about this. Like, that's the only way, and I'm not gonna go any short of that. Like, one more thing, and I want you to share. I just like if I go with my future wife, maybe my fiance at the time, we go to a nice restaurant, maybe with you, Bob, maybe if Canada ever allows travel again in the next 30 years,
don't go there.
we'll go to Toronto area and go to a nice dinner. I want to be with my wife or fiance or whoever it is at the time. We're having a great dinner and we're at a really nice restaurant, so there's going to be tons of beautiful women, and I want to know deep down in my heart I made the right choice here. There is all these great women, these beautiful women in Toronto. Toronto has a lot of beautiful women, but I know this choice. I go to bed at night. This was the best choice I ever made in my life. So anyway, that was my little rant, but that's just how I feel. So I was curious your thoughts on outpunting your coverage type things, because you mentioned that. So
I know. Well, this whole thing about searching for like happiness and purpose in your personal life and even your professional life, I don't think it's a search. I think it's just being comfortable with where you are, and as you go forward, and you kind of have confidence, and just make it about the person you're with, and even if it's not the right person, just keep your eyes and ears open, and just, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But I told all my kids, I've got 4 kids, as you know, I've got 5 grandkids, and they're all successful, all very different. But I used to always tell them when they're dating, and especially my girls, like my girls are really attractive, and it was my first marriage. I mean, I only lasted 2 years, but I ended up with 2 girls out of it, and they're like, I don't even know how old they are, Jimmy, 38, 36, or maybe, I don't know, they're not going to listen to this. So, but they're both very successful. But he always used to say, well, Dad, what do I do? And here I'm thinking, okay, I just said, go to different levels, level 1, level 2. I mean, you just want to just have fun, and you shouldn't be talking about level 3 or level 4. It's kind of, you can't jump levels. I don't think you can. I mean, it doesn't mean time-wise you can't, but just make sure it's ready, and then there's got to be a commitment in there at some point. I mean, this is my old fart thinking, Jeremy. I mean, it's like, listen, I mean, you can't meet somebody and say you want to get married. I mean, if they could be the right one, there's nothing wrong with thinking that potential, but then at least you got to get to know them in different situations, and see them in terms of conflict, and you got to go through a little bit. And if you start to predetermine who that is, you'll end up like I did. I mean,
Well, yeah, I believe the healthy way of thinking, especially if you're, I'm 30 now, about to be 31. Freedom is my number one value, which means I hate wasting time. So I wouldn't be spending time with anybody on a serious amount, level, unless I thought there was that potential.
Yeah.
So the first time or two, the first couple weeks of texting and talking on the phone or whatever, for me, that's, hey, is this person a potential long-term match for me? But yeah, I agree. That's the whole title of marriage and starting a family thing, that's seems so far-fetched for me at this point. I'm just I just want to have a successful relationship. Sure. Once we can prove that, then it's okay.
Yeah, you're not closing the door. Too many people, they put these defined barriers on a relationship, and that's a mistake in business too. You want to keep enhancing wherever you are, at what level the relationship is, be it business, be it personal, and you want to try and be authentic with it. You want to try and be as open and sharing as you can within reason. I mean, you just want to go out there and say, I'm Jeremy, and I did this and this and this, and I came from this, and I do this, and I have this, and it's like, oh. So you want to kind of have the ability to
That's how it
guide.
goes, Bob. That's my last couple dates. No, I'm just kidding.
There's my car. I don't have that car anymore, but I had that car.
Yeah, I had a car. Actually, can you pick me up? That's actually my first line now is I don't have a car. Can you pick me up for
I
a
know.
first date?
Well, you picked me up in that car. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I do remember that. What I wanted to ask one thing too that I wrote down about kind of like your experience with Dave and Barry, and I'm sure you have some other. What would you say is just a good, if there's somebody that has had some long relationships, maybe it's a friendship, just somebody that's been in their life for a long time, but the relationship isn't where they want it to be. They feel like the relationship would be like maybe like a childhood friend or a sibling or something they've known for 10, 20, 30 years, but they don't feel like the relationship's as strong as it could be. Or hopefully not a spouse, but maybe a spouse too.
Yeah, sure.
What would you say is a good way to just reconnect and strengthen that relationship from your experience?
Well, I think you want to start the conversation and make it about them. And just go back to your first principles. I don't know what they are. Mine are about being authentic, and I think you share that. Being open, showing that in whatever situation you're in, you're looking to create value in that conversation, that relationship. And you do that by kind of thinking what's in their head. So always in a relationship or an interface, if you're thinking what's in their head, too many people, they get comfortable and boy, they're back in their own head and they're not even aware of the impact they're having on somebody else. So if you can use that, what are they thinking? I mean, I use this in business as well. I use this 4 conversation model that I don't think we've ever shared, but it's all about what are they thinking? What is the conversation? Make the conversation, adapt it to what you think they're thinking, not what you know they're thinking because you don't. And then you try and bring that out and try and circle around, even that pursue thing. When I talk about this pursue, circle around what you think their principles are. What is their expectation in this conversation? This can be personal, What is the reward in this? I mean, what are we getting out of this? I mean, reward isn't money, obviously, but what are they looking for? And if you got your spidey up around those things, it makes it pretty easy to see, are you at a level that you want to continue with? So even with their old childhood friends, none of those have ever worked out for me. I go back to those things and I'm not interested. I mean, people haven't grown. They're not real people to me.
They
just
do suck. I agree. It is.
I mean, I'm in Canada and people here, I'm actually so appalled, and this has nothing to do with COVID, but I mean, I am so appalled at the mindset of Canadians. I'm just alarmed. I'm disgusted. I'm embarrassed to say I'm Canadians. It's not because everybody knows that our fucked up premier just creates despair everywhere he goes. But what I'm really appalled with, I mean, when I met my wife, Jan, you've met Jan. I mean, we've been married for 36 years and I met her in Atlanta. So I commuted back and forth to Atlanta for like 13 years every week. It was a great relation.
From Toronto to Atlanta?
From Buffalo because my office. So I had a crazy life and here's the nice thing. What a crazy relationship. I met her right after I was out of my first one. I was partying with the guys and I met her in a goddamn hot tub of all things.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
There was every reason to not keep dating and not doing everything, but it was perfect because I lied to her. I used the wrong name. It's a long story because I didn't want anybody hitting on a rich dentist that was now on the market, right? Because my first marriage was done, and I was just out there to party and have fun. And here, who do I meet? Oh my God, it's like ridiculous. Every reason to not continue this relationship, but I couldn't not continue it. The levels just went out the wazoo. So, anyway, so where was I going with this? I don't even know how I got started on that. It was about being isolated here, being Canadian, and because everybody here, they're a bunch of sheeples. They walk around. They think it's okay. They're protected. I just find it absolutely the self-entitlement to look after myself first, and they don't give a shit about what's happened up here to all the people. I mean, they don't give a shit the fact that they're part of this whole fear-based, steamrolling, lack of common sense shit that's been out there. I can't stand it. To the point, I mean, I don't really feel like I'm Canadian. I don't know what the hell I am because we lived in Atlanta my boys were born in Atlanta. We lived there for like 13 years, moved back up here. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just like, we're in probably the nicest little town in Canada. where we are in Niagara-on-the-Lake, south of Toronto. It's unbelievable here. People retire, they just come here, they're happy, but they're like sheeples. I mean, to coin
what's the difference between an modern American conservative and a Canadian conservative? Is there a difference, or is it kind of the same thing?
Well, Canadian conservatives are so conservative, they don't question anything. An American conservative, they question stuff that's off of the status quo, and if it affects their freedoms, they're going to push back. They're going to be aware. They're going to look at things and make their own decisions. Here, holy shit. I mean, I don't want to generalize, but I almost have to. This has brought the absolute worst, I believe, out of everybody.
The lockdown specifically you're referring to?
Well, the worst because they've accepted it way too much, to the point we've got a draconian arrangement here still. I mean, nobody seems to question, oh, well, and Canadians are like that. I mean, we're known around the world as the stable people, very stable banking. It's because we don't do anything. We just sit back and wait. And that sometimes you can't do that. And I have to use this word. I'm appalled at what's happened up here. Not because of me. Our business is an essential business in the mining industry. I sit in my basement here now and I'm working on stuff. And we've got that practice in San Francisco that Barry and I own. We've been working on. And my life doesn't change. What changes when I go out there, I want to throw up. I mean, people won't even engage in conversation, even if you've got an opinion. Well, tell me what you think. And the minute I say anything which out of the norm that they're fed this crap up here, even if they're so-called conservative, financially successful people, Jeremy, they don't have an opinion. And because they don't have an opinion, they don't push back. That's why they still got the border locked down. That's why they have these quarantine hotels. I don't know if you heard about this. You fly now back into Canada, you got to stay in a government hotel, like a prison, for 3 days. You believe that? It's like, that's not going to happen. When are they going to tattoo our, little arm here? And here's your number and you're back. But anyway, I can't go on this thing. It's just been so disappointing. I've been so disappointed in this whole thing. All these so-called stupid, smart people. I don't know. I can't handle it. I might move to the States again.
That's actually what I was about to ask. Are you a resident or a citizen here?
No. My wife is dual. My kids are dual.
Oh, so that'd probably make it. You could probably.
Oh yeah, we can move. I mean, you can be a resident anyway, but I can. I mean, Jan has got her Canadian citizenship, and she's got both. She's totally dual, and both the boys are dual. They got both passports. I mean, they can do what they want.
Where would you move? Move down here in Florida near the water. Where I'm gonna move. You should.
Where are you going to? Are you going to St. Pete?
I've been thinking about St. Pete. I think like Dave's on the East Coast, near like Mar-a-Lago and stuff. I mean, I think that would be nice maybe to visit, but I don't know if I'm like
Dave's not going to enough. Dave's not going to the West Coast. There's no way.
No. That's what I'm saying. I've thought about somewhere on the East Coast, like there or Ponte Vedra or whatever. But I think the West Coast is a better fit for me. West Coast of Florida.
It would be for me too. No, we'll probably. I don't know. We'll go to I like space. I like trees. We got, I mean, we're used to certain things around us, like trees and big lot. And we lived in Atlanta on 2 acres in like 30 years ago. I mean, we're used to living in nice things. So I probably wouldn't go to Florida to live. We like mountains, and my wife's from North Carolina.
So I was about to say
she's born in Charlotte, and she's lived all over the place. Her dad was an executive at McDonnell Douglas, so she lived in L.A. and Washington State, St. Louis. She's lived and she was a flight attendant, so she's been, and we've traveled all around the world. There's almost, I'm saying this egotistically, I don't mean to do that, but we've been everywhere. To the point we don't want to travel anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Not because we don't enjoy the travel. It's just that it doesn't spark us anymore unless we want to see a 4 seasons we want to travel to. But we literally have. There's not many places that I'd want to go that I haven't been.
Totally. I mean, my viewpoint, by the way, like the whole mask thing, which there is some evidence. I'm not not to go like in a masks debate, but I'm just going to lead into travel. Like, if you're around a bunch of people and you're wearing the masks properly, which is very important because a lot of people don't wear them properly, and if they're properly sanitized, which is also very important because oftentimes they're not, and people aren't constantly readjusting them and touching their face and all that stuff, if all those things are done correctly, there is benefit to that. With that being said, traveling's been annoying for me lately, or doing much of anything. Like, I was at a baseball game. We were socially distanced 2 weekends ago. No one within 20 feet of us either way. And they were like mask Nazis. And I'm like, we're outside and no one's like 3 hours with a mask on my face. And I'm just trying to like like if my dad and my brother weren't there, I'm just trying to be nice and respectful. But if they weren't there, I would just be like, fuck it. Like if you're gonna kick me out, you're gonna like I'm not. We're like past the point of science, and like there's no science that supports me being 20 feet away from somebody outside. Me wearing a mask is gonna help, and like we're just at this point where it's more about show and not even about the science. And then like the airplanes, and there's tons of memes about it, and we make jokes about it, but it's extremely sad. You socially distance throughout the entire airport, because I've been on multiple plane trips the last few months. You socially distance, even boarding now. I like fly Southwest a lot. Normally there's 30 people in a line. Now there's like 10 or 15 in a line. You do all this, and then you get on the plane and you're squeezed in right next to people. And then
it makes no sense.
And then it's tough, like to wear a mask for a 3 or 4 or 5 hour flight, depending on where I'm flying. Like that's really uncomfortable. I feel like I like have a hard time breathing, so that can't be good for me. It's just like there's just so much craziness going on right now that makes no sense. I hope 10 years from now my generation looks back at this and be like, this is the dumbest thing we've ever done.
Well, you can say that right now, Jeremy. I believe wholeheartedly. I got pretty good science background. I'm not a medical doctor, but I've been working in the microbe world for my whole life. I mean, it's just, this has almost turned into fear porn. I mean, I hate to say that, but I mean, to me, it's just, there's no, I mean, this is, if anything, the data being referenced is actually unscientific. They're not following scientific principles. And whatever happened to this thing? Whatever happened to the true risk analysis? So people keep throwing out this stuff to mass work. And here's the problem. And I don't think there's a solution for this, because when things get politicized, there's no accountability in these public health experts. They're using data that promotes fear of the unknown. It's just complete ridiculous. I mean,
no one in the White House says anything about health either. They don't talk about how to wear the masks properly, how to clean them, how to sanitize them, how to take vitamins and get sun and get exercise for yourself.
They take that off the internet. You talk about taking vitamin D to prevent COVID, and they were taking all those sites down. And that's a big one, is the vitamin D. It's great for your immunity. Yeah. Take 7 to 8,000 milligrams and take magnesium with it, which is a cofactor. It'll just, you almost won't get COVID.
I'm not a mask denier. I know if they there's obvious science and just common sense that makes sense. Like, hey, if you sneeze and you have a mask on,
it's not true.
Well, no, I could see it could help the spread of droplets. Yes,
but this would do better.
Maybe, but the point is, like,
you're right.
There's 100 different factors that can help you be healthier, and we just, like, society is focused on this one of mask, and it's just like there's all the shaming going on if you don't wear a mask. It should
be up here. Jan was walking in Costco the other day, which they're starting to let a little more people in. Guy came up to her, and she wasn't walking towards the direction of the arrow. She said to him, "Get a life." "You're walking the wrong way." She looked at him, she says, "Get a life." I mean, these people up here are just, they're all walking around like they're the viral police, all these citizens, and it's like, "You're killing people, Well, I made the waitress cry the other day. I got in trouble. So.
Oh, you made the waitress cry? Do you want to share about that? I've never made a waitress cry about it.
Like she went into it, in terms of, so at this point they opened up, and it just now, as of this weekend, they just opened up to allow 50% capacity. We were restricted to indoor dining with 10 customers in the restaurant. Doesn't matter how big the restaurant, 10 people. If a restaurant would even open.
Science, and then Bob. Sounds like science to me.
At the table, you had to be from the same house. It's like, and they make you sign in, they make you do all this shit. So anyway, we're in this great restaurant. There's 2 people, and then this girl comes up, and I don't want to really get into it too much because she was way out of line. Because she started out with the conversation about, she was engaging and about COVID. Aren't you glad to be back to work and blah blah blah, and it'll loosen up. And then as she's working, where they moved us into what they call the red zone, where we can even go to a restaurant. Before, it's been in the gray zone since Christmas, believe it or not. So it just opened up 2 weeks ago that we didn't go to a restaurant at all. We have no different virus up here. And I'm thinking, well, she's got to be happy because we want to support the restaurants and take out and everything. And she, I just lost my, and then we started to talk about, where the fear should be in protecting the vulnerable, of course, protecting those people and really protecting them way better than they should have. They didn't protect vulnerable people. They just didn't here, anywhere. They just did. There's ways to protect people. I worked in an OR for my whole life in the hospital, and we protected people because it's the same shit. I mean, you gas, you gown, you're in a bubble. You know, you use sterile procedure, you change your mask, you don't touch your mask. This is what masks will work for droplets for sure. But none of that happens. So they could have protected the vulnerable, and especially, so she said, well, I lost my uncle. He was 75. I said, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And then went into these comorbidity things. I said, well, you know, we got to feel better about the fact that you're healthy and you're young, your chance of dying. She said, well, I just lost a friend that was 45. And I said, really? You lost? And this was after I said, you know, there's not one case of somebody dying that didn't get a ventilator, even up here. You know, we're way behind you guys. And, you know, the ORs, the emergency rooms are not overflowing like they say. They're always overflowing up here because of actually, we had a conversation about this last time, about our healthcare system. And then she goes on, and then I said, he was 45 and healthy and he died? She goes, no, he was a diabetic. I said, oh. So I didn't ask the question that I would have got kicked in the balls from my wife. And the next thing, when somebody's diabetic, you know the next question.
Are they obese?
Of course. I mean, that's always what follows diabetes with a 45-year-old, which is so many people. And obesity and diet, overwhelmingly, those are the comorbidity factors.
Which, by the way, they like, and this is, you know, Trump's White House and Biden's White House, they equally, and Fauci and all these people, like, none of them will talk about, Bill Maher did a whole rant on this. They won't talk about obesity because of fat shaming. Like, no, Trump or Biden White House won't even say, hey, like, and I've heard medical doctors talk about this, that just a week or two of a change in your diet can just have an unbelievable impact positively on your immune system. And that's not talked about at all. That's why this is like a big fucking scam. And a lot, like, I haven't seen one clip of Fauci talking about losing weight and building your immune system that way.
It's just such shit. They're not telling you the truth. I mean, what, 90% of all pathology can be traced to obesity at some level. Interesting. There's very few things that happen that aren't related to obesity, which affects your immune system. It affects all of your systems. So it's where you track it. So this girl, after me going down this road, and I said that, and she left, and she started to cry, and I didn't really say anything other than, here's what happened. And I was a little bit insensitive to this. And this is where she's totally tone deaf with the whole thing. She said, well, he had to go back to work. I said, well, why did he go to work? She said, well, he's got 2 kids to feed. So I said, well, I mean, it was a choice, then he shouldn't have gone to work. He knew. I didn't say that, but I inferred it, that he really didn't need to go to work. Well, who's going to feed his kids? It's like, well, on one hand, you say this, lock the whole fucking country down. But if you truly are somebody who's vulnerable, what the hell is he working for? Why don't you go over and help his fucking kids? I didn't say that, but I'm thinking, listen, I'm a paying customer. She's one of 2 waitresses in this restaurant with 10 people, and she goes down this road, and then she wouldn't wait on our table. So I took a deep breath, and I said, okay. It's like, okay.
45, though, I mean, that from all the data I've seen and all the people that I know have gotten COVID, which is a lot of my friends, because a lot of them travel and stuff like that, like 45 is on the real young side for death for this, even with comorbidity. So I'd be curious if there's something else going on.
He's
there.
Probably huge, and he's probably, I don't know, but I mean, it sounds awful suspicious. And when people say he's a diabetic, it's an easy thing to say. Do you know why? Because there are people who have, early onset diabetes that are born with it. But most people, it's brought on by poor health, poor diet, all of those factors. And so very few people. So I just have a picture in my mind that it's induced by lifestyle.
That's where a lot of that's why death rates in Asian countries are a fraction. I mean, there was a study that I think it was something along, don't quote on the exact percentage, but it was very close to like 100%, like 85% of all COVID deaths were in countries that had problems with severe obesity. I mean,
which is North America.
North America, Western Europe, certain parts of South America, not Japan, not South Korea, not where, people are just live healthier lifestyles. But yeah, it's pretty wild. Why do you feel like we're so afraid as a society? And by the way, like, I've been focused. COVID was maybe a blessing in disguise for me, because I've been so work and career focused my whole life. I definitely didn't focus on my health the way I should have. I've been a lot more focused on my health the last year. I've about like almost near where like my high school weight was, which is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. But it takes commitment, it takes discipline, it takes a lot, right? And
routine.
why can't we talk about that? Like, why can't we talk about the, no pun intended, but the elephant in the room here? With, it's just people are unhealthy, and we're gonna have a lot more sicknesses with people being unhealthy.
Well, it's the black hole, Jeremy. It's all the political crap that's out there. It's all the forcefully compelled power threatening. I mean, it's the way that it's happening. It's really bad. I mean, there was a great quote that I read. Oh, let's see if I find it here. It was really good. Oh, I like this. This was a Jordan Peterson thing in his new book. You like Peterson, I know that. Power can be connotated as if it's used to forcefully compel, and it's very threatening. Authority is the utilization of competence and responsibility. So they should be using their authority in government to use good, solid competence around them with decision making, to bring good people from all. Don't slam Fauci, even though he's never treated a patient in his life, but he's got a good piece. This person has a good piece. We all know this from our businesses and personal life, but you got to tell the truth about the pieces. We don't want people to be unhealthy, so let's start talking about this. And I would hope what would come out of this is people would start focusing on health and immunity. And that should be the bigger conversation when we all of a sudden are enlightened to the fact that viruses and things that happen, you got to be careful. I mean, you got to look after yourself. You got to be healthy. And this has been a perfect opportunity to showcase the fact that healthy people were fine. And that's what we need to focus on. We don't hear this. We don't hear it at all. I mean, and it's
both sides are afraid to talk about it.
They're afraid because it's not a politically correct thing to say. And Trump wouldn't talk about it. Nobody will talk about it.
Well, Trump was lived on unhealthy lifestyle himself, unfortunately.
Totally.
So it was that could have been a play for Trump. Be like, hey, like, I've lived a lot of my life. I'm not as healthy as I should have, and this was a wake up call for me, and I'm gonna start being healthy. Like, that actually could have been a good move for Trump in office, is to play that card. But yeah, I don't know why we're so fearful. And unfortunately, this is a big irony in modern society. The lowest income people are the disproportionately the most obese because of the food quality, which is definitely something that I think we should work on, is figuring out ways to get lower income communities, disproportionately minority, higher quality food. But even with that said, there has to be some personal accountability as well. Like, if you can go to McDonald's and eat every day, but if you're staying under a caloric count, you may not be getting the nutrients you want, but you can not be obese and eat fast food every day. It's what?
Totally. But
that's what I'm saying. You're not, maybe like nutrients, you're not getting what you need, but if you eat a low enough calorie, I mean, you can eat McDonald's and Taco Bell every fucking day. If you eat low enough calories, you're not going to gain a bunch of weight. It may not be like the most nutrient dense food that you want, but like, so there has to be a level of personal accountability where we can't just say, oh, it's because people don't have access to quality food. That's definitely part of it, and we should educate people and continue to encourage our friends to eat healthier and things like that. But again, there just has to be a level of personal accountability too. And if, like, I love Taco Bell. I eat it. There was one just built downtown Orlando.
Taco Bell?
Yeah. I eat it every couple of weeks.
That's not so bad, Taco Bell.
But I'll eat Taco Bell. That'll be the only meal I eat, and I'll probably fast 24 hours after it because I know what I'm putting myself into. I'm like, my body is not going to feel the best after this. I need some time to digest it, and I'm eating a shit ton of calories. So I'm like, I'm taking some personal accountability. And again, I'm far from perfect. I struggled with weight my whole life. I was a fat kid, but I'm like, if I can do it, I believe anybody can, right? So
Yeah, it's good habits, Jeremy. And there's enough out there that it doesn't take much to start to. It's just habits, and it's like accountability, responsibility. If you want to perform at a level, I mean, you have to accept what you've got. I mean, if you don't, and you can't look yourself in the mirror and just use a little bit, it's not hard. I mean, you just got to get into a routine, and it's basically routine. And you don't deny yourself stuff. Now, I think the biggest thing anybody can do is the restricted eating. And if you can't go 5 days, which I think the science now with that Rhonda Patrick, she's one of the biggest ones on restrictive eating. She's down in Florida. Her and Dom D'Agostino are really big on the restricted eating stuff and all the current leading science on that. But it's basically, the last thing I heard was that if you can, 15 hours, where you have your no eating and then you eat within so what does that leave you an eating window? Is that 9? 9 hours of an eating window. And you only have to do it 5 days a week. Because the problem is when you get into these routines that aren't part of normal lifestyle stuff and enjoyment, people won't do it. But if you can't go 5 days a week and follow that restricted eating, and then it doesn't matter what you eat in those other 2 days. It doesn't matter. They're saying, the studies, that is the biggest thing you can do to maintain your weight. And it works. I mean, I do it, but I've got to be careful because I drop. I mean, if I go with a crazy cheat, I dropped 5 pounds since I had a crazy cheat Saturday. So I weighed I'm less than I was when I was in high school, but I just have an ability to, some of it I'm built like that, but I mean, I have a routine.
We should study your DNA, Bob. I mean, that's the magical DNA,
Yeah, my dad's 96. Yeah, he's 96. So he's a different story.
You don't see a lot of 96-year-old obese people.
Oh, he's not obese.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, they don't exist.
They don't exist. Yeah. He's very disciplined at what he did his whole life. He's active and he's disciplined. For his generation, that's tough. It's not hard. It's just routine, and you got to do it. And even there's lots of ways now. There's so much stuff out there that you don't have to search far to find out things that work for you. But it's all about a consistent routine and what you do, your morning routine, your rituals. You got to do it. I mean, once you do it and you get into like sauna's a good thing, and mindfulness training, and you don't have to do it a lot, maybe 10 minutes, do a sauna, infrared sauna every day, walk, and do some, workout training. You don't have to do a lot. You can do so, and then take 2 days and go crazy.
Yeah, I just thought of some irony, Bob. We started the conversation talking about self-growth mentally, and now we're talking about self-growth physically.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so mentally self-growth, I think, is good. Physically self-growth, unless it's muscle, maybe not as good. So I have to be specific moving forward. But I do hope that, and I don't think it should even be shamed. Like, society is getting to a point where it's focusing on people shouldn't be so mean and say these things and say these prejudiced things and racist things, which I agree. We should continue to try to work on making society a friendlier place. But there has to be that balance of the self-accountability too. It's just like, I can't control if somebody's mean to me. I also, if somebody calls me fat, like, I was ashamed of that, and I was always insecure about that. But if I didn't have somebody saying that to me, I may not have, got to the point where I needed to do something about it, right? Like, it's on me to get offended by it. Like, it says a lot about me if I'm going to get offended that somebody's pointing out a major flaw in my health or lifestyle. And if, that's on me. And it's obviously sucks. It was never comfortable to hear. It made me feel bad, but I think that's okay. Like, sometimes you need to feel uncomfortable to start taking action.
Well, I think so. And what needs to happen is, if you have a goal to be physically fit and good diet, good health, you also get the other side of ones where people become fanatical because they're not working on their own head. They're not working on themselves. They're not working on their mind. They don't have reason and purpose so they just throw all this into, maybe as an anxiolytic, to use a medical term, where they just throw themselves into these crazy routines where they're just whacked and they're not balanced. I mean, you got to have the balance. What are you doing it for? If you want to look this way and be this way, you really have to have a balance in your head. You have to be mentally fit, and you got to work on yourself, and that you just got to do that. So if you don't have that, the other part of it doesn't really work, because then you're going to cheat. You're going to go off this thing. You're going to get self-deprecating. You really have to look at the whole principle. And if it starts anywhere, it doesn't start with working out. It starts with understanding, what are you doing? Why am I doing this? Where am I going? Attach your purpose and your happiness to people. We're wired that way. And we've always been that way, be it, your wife, your friendship, your family, whatever it is. And you'll see the common theme. And those people that start working on that, you'll never totally stop working on it. You're not supposed to. That's the whole trick. You'll be more motivated to you go out and you're with somebody you really like, a bunch of friends. I mean, you like to dress well, you like to go out, you like to have some fun, but you don't want to look like shit. I mean, you don't want to look like shit. You don't want to feel like shit in your head. You want to have fun. I mean, otherwise, what's the damn point? It's to me, it's just not obvious. That I don't understand why people just bury themselves in, substances of all kind, and they don't really. The minute you start grabbing it for a drink or a joint or something just to feel better, I think you have a problem. Starts with that. Because you feel like shit, I need a drink. I mean, that goes way back to Lead at the Beaver days and stuff. I need a drink. It's like, I got to have a drink, I had a bad day. I mean, the minute you say that, as well, what the hell does that mean? It could be okay, but if you need a drink to lift you up, that's not normal.
Especially all the time. Like, once a week you need a drink to have a bad day, or, just a stressful week, whatever.
And that's okay.
Every night when you get home, you need a drink? I agree.
And you got to start working on this. Why do you need a drink? Why do I do what I do? I go back to my question. Like, what am I doing? I mean, it's not just business. It's the big part of it is you got to be connected personally and professionally. When you get that balance, no matter what happens in your life, you can circle back to first principles in what you do. Why the hell am I going to go out there and walk today? Well, I always do, but I understand why. I mean, I want to live. I want to be around. Fucking COVID. I've got my youngest granddaughter was born in August. I've seen her once. How about that? That's not wild. Good. But I mean, there's got to be balance for those things that you. There's got to be a purpose to what you're doing and why. If your purpose is to look good, that's great. But you got to feel good and look good, not just look good to play. To be a player. I mean, that's going nowhere.
Yeah. Well, by the way, my therapist has shared with me that she's worked on people that worked with people. She's not a dentist like you. She doesn't work on people, I don't think, Bob, like you did. But she said a lot of the people really addicted to fitness, because that is another form of addiction. Like, we all have our own addictions, and it's important to be conscious. There's like some correlation she was sharing, like the more addicted they are to fitness, the less kind of like work they've done on themselves mentally. It's like that not the sense. Case all the time. Obviously, there's a lot like aware, physically fit people, but there's something there. It's just like, rather than taking that mental awareness and diving deep into yourself, that fitness is that addiction that makes you okay with avoiding. So I think, again, that's mental health. I don't know what the solution is, because it's a very complex issue. And again, I'm a pretty small government guy. I'm a libertarian for the most part, but I may be for government investing in some sort of mental health, because we can't. I for the most part agree, like, there has to be self-responsibility. The parents need to teach these things to their kids, but that's a slippery slope, relying on parents to instill healthy relationship patterns and communication patterns, because these kids will be fucked up for a lifetime, and they are, right? I mean, if you look back into what, like, a lot of adults, a lot of serial killers, I mean, they're fucked up kids, right? So I don't know what the solution is. Government paid for mental health care, but I think I'm open to that.
Mental health everywhere, Jimmy. These people aren't the whiners that show up with 3 donuts and a cup of coffee and want to get treated because they're fat and they've got, the diabetic condition they're dealing with and their feet hurt. And it's like, well, fucking look at you. I mean, stop eating fucking donuts and having doubles, like double sugar, double cream, double everything. I mean, it's like, but then the people that are mentally, that's a problem, because it's easy to push them aside. And because they don't ask for help a lot of times. And this is where we need to pour a lot more money. You got to help those who can't help themselves. I mean, that's the way I look at this.
We shouldn't have such a negative stigma for mental health. It should be the same, if not more important, than your physical health. Because I would argue 100%. If you're not mentally okay, you're not going to be physically 100%. Okay. But it should just be like, hey, I'm like, as simple as I went to the gym this morning and then I saw my therapist. Like, normal conversation. I think we have a stigma about like, oh, like I'll tell people in my life like, hey, I see a therapist. They'll be like,
I think it's great.
Are you okay? Is something wrong? Is something I'm like, no, I just like fucking seeing a therapist. I like sharing shit. Like, why is
I mean, it's a great thing that's happening now, that it's becoming more the norm that smart, successful people are actually seeking therapy. And it's different for everybody, but therapy is really to work on yourself at many levels. And if you know, that whole idea of the self-help world, I think it's great. I mean, you just got to be careful of the money that's being made in that too, and they get you kind of addicted to some of that stuff. Just understand what the shiny stuff is around it, and you're aware of that too. But I think it's fantastic, and I just think it's the biggest area that we need to invest in our society. If we can't look after those people, there's something wrong. I mean, those people can't. And when you can go in those areas, it's easy to push them into up here. They have government housing complexes, and it's such a sad thing. The homeless problem. I mean, stop using it as a football and figure out, you know, what's going on. Nobody wants to be homeless, for Christ's sake. These people have families. They grew up as a kid. I mean, when somebody says, don't say, well, this is a problem because they're shitting on the street. But let's take it out of the political arena, please, and find out what's going on. And if we can kind of help these people.
No one probably wants to be a mass shooter either. I mean, I know like gun control is going to be a big conversation now. We're recording this the day after the big shooting in Colorado. So, but like there's something deeper going on. Like I have to imagine these people are just really fucked up mentally. And I don't know what the exact solution is, because mental health, I think ultimately it's how America is structured as a country. I think it's gonna kind of like what I will say, and I think it's important to acknowledge progress. I feel like America, without the help of the government, which is very important, we've started to become more healthier. People are living more active lifestyles, being more conscious of food, especially my generation that's starting to become something like where the food was raised. Like people care about that stuff. Like if you go through it in a Chipotle now, like you look on the walls, like it's like where the cows were from. I mean, people care about that stuff, which is great. I think it's just the next step is the encouraging, and putting pressure on employers to maybe offer stuff like that, not just health benefits from a like, hey, if you need to go to the hospital, the dentist, whatever, but hey, like include monthly therapy or bi-monthly therapy or whatever it is. So
I agree. I think it's great. I really think it's an area that has been just looked over because it's easy to overlook it.
It's hard to diagnose it.
It's hard to diagnose it.
You can diagnose a broken arm. It's very obvious. Most people won't disagree on like if an arm's broken, but like there's different opinions on like, and there's so much negative stigma around therapy. People don't even want to be like, I don't even have a problem. Like, why would I go to a therapist? Why would I do that? And that's not
it's because I don't want a problem. I want to keep working on myself. It's a great thing to do. I'm kind of older than you, so I never really grew up in that time where you could really go and get counseling and therapy. The only counseling I ever had was after I kind of decided I got two little kids, one 2 months old and one 2 years old, and I'm walking away because I look at my wife and I go, I don't even fucking want to go home. I don't even know why I married this person. That's a hard thing. So I was very resistant, but I said, I got to get this done because I've got these little kids here. I love these kids. I got to figure this out. I'm just going to make a stupid business decision here. So my therapist looked at me. She said, I see a tree. I said, what do you mean you see a tree? She said, a tree. This side's in full bloom. The other side, there's nothing there. So I had no emotional development at all. As this very successful 6-year-old, I mean, dentist. I had so much money already, and I kind of accomplished all these crazy goals. And it's like, you're so developed this way. Well, getting married was part of that thing. I want to have a wife. I want to have kids. I want to. So, and when she said that to me, she said, well, you got to go and get your own. I was staying in a hotel because I didn't want to do anything. And they stayed in the house with this big, beautiful house and all the stuff, you know, Porsche and the whole thing. And I'm 26. And it's like 26 or 27, 20, I don't remember. But, and anyway. And then she looks at him, she goes, you got to get the fuck out of that hotel and go get an apartment. You're not getting back together with your wife. You never loved her. I actually told my wife that. So I go back and tell my wife that.
How'd that go?
Oh, my God. And I tell anybody that says you didn't do that. I said, I did. I'm very practical. Well, guess what happened? 3 years of an absolute Hiroshima going off. It was a different story, Welcome to the legal profession. But anyway, so there was a lot of learning in that, and I was very resistant to going. But this girl was great. I mean, way ahead of her time. She wasn't there. I said to her, if I'm here to talk to you just to get back together with my wife, I don't think I want to do this. She said, that's not why I'm here. I just want to talk about you. Oh, okay. The stigma even those days was very weird to go to a therapist. And it didn't take long, and I didn't need to see her for long. She says, you got to go work on yourself. Well, I met my current wife, my only wife, and life's good. It's fantastic. But
from what I understand, relationship therapists, if they're doing their job ethically and right, it's not to necessarily fix a relationship. It's to have both people get 100% clear and decide if that relationship's a good fit moving forward. So it's true. Like the goal, it's like, say you go in on the fence. You're like, should we continue this? The one side of the fence is ending the marriage. One side is continuing the marriage. The therapist's goal, from what I understand, if doing it ethically, is getting them off the fence and having that truth uncovered, not making it to where like you can't force people that aren't meant to be meant to be,
And that is exactly what that was, and I thought it was great, but I never followed it up with anything because I became, reasonably centered, and so I took the next 15 years to live in Atlanta, going back and forth and just partying my head off and having kids and just having the best time of my life. It was like a kid in a candy store. It was like, oh my God, I never did this before. I was so driven. I driving home today, what the hell do I do now? I'm like 27 years old. I've got everything paid for, including my office building. I can't buy anymore. Now what the hell do I do? I'm 7 years old. It's like,
yeah.
And I don't want to drive home and see my wife. What the hell do I do here? I mean, that's not good for somebody who's just been so focused on, getting ahead in what you would call business. But it was a good realization for me to stop. And then, but the funny thing is, then I said, well, then what happened? Well, it's because I had a great time. But then I started to say, well, I still got this. I just can't not do shit that's in front of me. So I just kept going. But I got great balance with my wife, and I got really, I'll say, lucky. No question, I got lucky. I mean, Jesus.
When was the last time you saw a therapist?
Oh, I haven't. Dave.
I would challenge you just to find. So you're a very smart, self-aware guy. So you're gonna have to find a practice that has some like really high-level therapists. They have different degrees and certifications based on, and like the higher level, more educated, more degreed ones, whatever, are more expensive. But it's still not even like an insane amount of money. But there's a non-profit one downtown Orlando that I just walk to because it's nice and convenient for me. But I was looking through the staff they had, and I was just like, I want this one, the one that had the all the like I think this, because you're smart enough and aware enough where if it's like too entry level of a therapist, I feel like you're gonna be like out questioning or like out thinking her and like probably like reversing it on her too much or whatever. But find one that's like very, very, very skilled and a lot of good experience, and I feel like you would get a lot of enjoyment out of it. It's been like healthy for me.
It's on my list, and my wife's a great therapist. I mean, she's the best. I mean, so I have absolutely the best sounding board on the planet.
I agree. It's still have this third party though. Yeah, I agree. I would just challenge you. I don't
even think it's a challenge. I think it's reality, and I think it's great advice for anybody. And but it's finding the right person and just pulling the switch in that. But I've been going through quite a transformation in 5 years where, I'm starting to look after myself a lot more. I don't mean physically, but just protecting myself. And that's probably a really stark way of saying I need to start looking at myself, study myself like a bug. Don't you love that? That's Jim Collins. Study yourself like a bug.
Well, one thing that therapy was good for me, by the way, is I believe most therapists, or maybe not most, a majority of therapists are women. There are men, obviously. Jordan Peterson should talk about that. Where's the reverse sexism there?
Hey,
no, I'm just kidding. But Peterson would probably say something along the lines of women just have a more of a natural nurturing want and energy to be in therapy, because you have to have a lot of patience for people like me. But I thought it was good.
Is your therapist a woman?
She is, and she's actually a younger woman, which I like, which that wasn't my intention. But so I believe that's a benefit for me, because I'm grateful to have, guys like you and Dave and other men in my life that I think have just been like good role models that I can talk through about things and stuff. But it's like all men, right, that I share my challenges with. And by having a woman voice and having somebody around my age, she's a little bit older than me, but I think that's been healthy for me too. So I would maybe challenge people to find a voice that they're not getting feedback from, which in my case was a woman around my age. I'm fortunate to have a lot of great male mentors and people I look up to in my life, but I felt like that was good too.
I see no negative in it at all, Jeremy. I mean, I think it's just something that just bouncing stuff off and looking at different opinions that are clinically based is important too. I mean, these people I think therapists nowadays have a lot of science training. I mean, Jordan Peterson, he was still doing 20 hours of his clinical practice every week. He was still doing this right up to about a couple of years ago, because it's, there's such good stuff out there that you can't go wrong doing it. You just got to work it into your routine. It's the last thing I haven't worked into my routine. And it's something I'm going to do. I'm down here. It might be a little harder to find the right person. So I'd have to
start virtually, and then when you're able to do in person, you can transition.
Yeah, but I am going to think about doing it. I've been thinking about it for quite a while, but I've had all these health challenges in the last 2 years. I had AFib and lost my brain for a while, and it's fucking stupid stuff.
I think there's a reason we talked about this. I think you would be very, very happy that you gave this a shot.
What do you think? I'm wacky or something, Jeremy?
I do, very much so. That's why I like you so much.
I like that.
Yeah. If you were boring and normal, you think I'd want to have you on the show and talk.
You know how many times Dave is? We talking about Dave a lot here, but he's looked at me so many times with a big laugh, and how he laughs from his belly. You are such a whack job. Because he's just laughing because I just go. I think. Anyway,
Well, it was great having you on, Bob. Enjoyed catching up.
Well, I enjoyed it, Jeremy. We'll get together as soon as they get rid of our lockup here.
I would love to
get you up here. We've got a new house. I told you they moved in October. It's a great spot. So, Jan's brilliant at doing this stuff. So I just kind of show up. But she's amazing at building houses.
I promise you, I commit to coming up and visiting. Maybe by the summer things will be loosened up. So
yeah, when it loosens up, for sure. And I'm gonna make a trip down there, and I'll drop in and see you. I'm gonna see Dave, and in his new place, I've only seen it virtually.
His new place is great. You should let me know when you do that, and I can maybe stay down there too.
Sounds good.
He has plenty of room. Yeah,
it looks great, and he just keeps talking about the Trump golf course.
Yeah. So all right, good chat.
Anyway, Jeremy,
Bob.
great talking to you. Hope it didn't keep you too long.
Thank you for listening to Openly Outspoken with Jeremy Adams. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player so you get updated when new episodes are live. If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support is to leave a 5-star review and share the podcast with people in your life that you feel would benefit from these types of discussions. Visit openlyoutspoken.com for additional details on the show. Find out how to connect with Jeremy on social media and learn more information about Jeremy's personal and business life. We'll see you next time.